Disclaimer, if you just want to see the most modern Chinese-made wah pedal, this is not the video for you. This video is going to be about the very first wah pedal ever made, the prototype pedal, also known as the Dell Casher wah. Back in 2013, I was making Clyde McCoy wah pedals, winding my own inductors, and making my PC boards from scratch and stuff like that. Anyway, I came across a video of Dell Casher from a 2013 NAMM interview, and he was showing off his prototype wah, and I was instantly fascinated. So I decided I had to build one of these wahs, and I went online and picked up one of these old silver or gray enclosures. And what these enclosures were, they were the volume pedals for the Thomas or the VOX Continental and Jaguar organs. They're actually the same pedal that later on became the wah pedal. They just chromed the top, and this was sprayed with that black shrink paint or whatever they call it. So anyway, I got one of these enclosures, and then I got a bunch of parts to make a prototype looking replica. And I contacted Dell after I built this pedal, and I used a 500 mH inductor because I just thought it sounded right. And I asked if I could send it to him for free, and of course Dell said sure. So I sent him this pedal, and just a few days later, I get an email saying, "Bob, I love this pedal. It's the greatest wah I've ever heard." And maybe he says this to everybody, but he wanted to know more about me and asked me for my phone number. So I gave him my phone number, and about 5 minutes later, he called me, and we talked for hours. And this was the beginning of our friendship. And anyway, during the years I knew Dell, I asked him about the wah pedal and how the whole thing started. And he said in 1966, he was a consultant for the Thomas Organ Company, and there was a VOX amplifier that they had there, and it had an MRB switch, a slider switch, and that was the mid-range boost switch. And he strummed a chord on his guitar and then moved the switch back and forth, and when he did, it made the wah sound. And he instantly thought, this is something really cool. So he asked the engineer, a young guy, Brad Plunkett, if they could put the circuit inside of a pedal so we could be hands-free and play the guitar and use the pedal at the same time. And Brad said, sure, we could probably do that. So they grabbed one of these enclosures off the shelf, and they drilled a hole in it and grabbed one of these circuit boards, and they got to work. Now, Dell never claims to be the mastermind behind the wah pedal. He just says that he was the guy who found the sound, and he's at the right place at the right time and had the right engineer to do it. And he says his main contribution was just being the ear, that Brad Plunkett was a genius engineer, and but Dell was, he had the musical ear. So Brad would wire the thing together, put a bunch of parts in there. Dell would play it and say, it's too low or too high, or there's a lot of mud here. And they would change parts, and they kept doing that until the pedal was completely fine-tuned. Also, if you look here, these screws are the American 632 thread. That's a USA thread because the very first wah pedals were not Italian, even though I think most of these pedals were either from England or Italy and did have a foreign thread, but this specific model actually did have the 632. Anyway, back to the wah. This is what the circuit looked like. It was crudely put together, point-to-point wiring. It had the Pactron ITW capacitors, the 2N2926 green dot transistors. You can see the little 4 MFD capacitor there. The stack of dimes inductor. So the wah pedal was fine-tuned and it was ready to go. But Thomas Organ, they didn't think this should be for guitars. At the time, there was no Jimi Hendrix. The whole music revolution of rock and roll in the 60s was brand new, and they just assumed it'd be a fad. So they wanted to market the wah pedal towards trumpet players, because in the 1930s there was the famous trumpet player Clyde McCoy, and he played the trumpet in a way which made it have the wah sound. So they thought, hey, we could sell these to trumpet players, and they could, I'm guessing, play their trumpet through a microphone into this. I don't see how that would have sounded or worked very well, but Dale disagreed. He said, no, this is a guitar thing, trust me. And he asked the Thomas Organ Company, he said, look, I have a studio in Hollywood, California, and I will make a record with my own money if that's cool with you guys. And they said, hey, go for it. So Dell made this record right here. and it's just a paperback record. And it's probably passed out at guitar shops or whatever. And so that's one way that they got the wah out there. And also, Del Casher was friends with Frank Zappa, and he showed Frank Zappa the wah, and Zappa loved it. And in return, excuse me, Frank Zappa showed it to Hendrix. And that is how Jimi Hendrix became introduced to the wah pedal, according to Del Casher. So, fast forward here, I sent Del that first circuit and wah pedal, and he loved it. And then he asked if I could make a note-for-note replica so we could take it out, because his wah, the pot, was scratchy. And we talked about taking his pot apart without unsoldering it, just peeling the back off and trying to clean it. We never did that. Anyway, so I started collecting all these parts, and it actually took several years. I had to get a ton of Thomas organs and take them apart. But if you look here, it's even got the, let me move this wire. It's got the W or M screw. I mean, it's all the same parts. I even wired it with every single thing bent and soldered the exact same way. All the wires are bent the same way. I actually do have the correct inductor. I made about 30 of these inductors, and this one sounded the best. But I do have a real 60s inductor that I want to put in here someday, along with the 4-prong switch that I'll probably put in there. And also I have the right battery clip, but if I remember right, Del told me that the one that's in his pedal is not the original one because it wore out. I don't know if I'll do that stuff now, though, because this was owned and used by Del Casher, so I kind of just want to keep it the way it is. One of the things that was happening is when I was trying to make this wah pedal, at first I went by my ear, and I went with the 500 millihenry inductor, but then later on I went online, and everybody was saying it's a 250 mH inductor. And I probably purchased about 6 of these pedals instead of using the same one. And I sent them to Del. Every one was free too. I never charged them a single dime. But they sounded terrible because I was using that 250 mH inductor. It's not that they were terrible, they just weren't the right sound for the prototype wah. And I'm guessing what happened is online, everybody is confusing this pedal right here, the right side pedal, with the prototype wah. This is not the prototype at all. This was the JMI English wah pedal that Jimmy Page used, and this has a 250 mH inductor inside of it. Anyway, so that was incorrect. So I ended up asking Del, excuse me, I asked him, I said, can you please record just a little track for me of the wah pedal with, clean, no sound effects. Oh, my other pedal has a scratch on it, sorry. Anyways, no sound effects, no reverb. I just need to be able to hear the wah. And if you could use a Strat, that'd be great too, because when I'm building this thing, I'll be using a Strat. So Del sent me a recording of this, and I'm going to play these 2 recordings at the end of this video of the original prototype. And anyway, when you hear these recordings, he's just going through the notes. So he's in the heel down position, and then he goes to the toe down position, and that's so I can hear the frequencies of the pedal and try to recreate it. And the interesting thing about this, the Strat that he's using is a 1964 maple cap Strat. And how we got this, Leo Fender invited him to the factory in Fullerton in '64 because Leo wanted to give him a Strat to play basically for advertising or whatever. So Del goes down to the factory, and Leo pulls out a Strat, and it's a 64 with a rosewood neck. And Del says, well, this is nice and all, but is there a way to get a maple cap or a maple neck? Because that's the sound that he prefers. And Leo said, well, we haven't used those since '59, but we are working on something right now. So Leo pulled out a maple cap 64 Strat neck and said, would this work? And Del said, yeah, for sure. So a guitar was put together. It was a Olympic white Strat with the mint green pickguard. Even though Del says it's white, I always said, no, it's mint green. But anyway, after his belt, Del asked him if he could put a switch in there to where he could use the bridge and neck pickup at the same time like a telly. So Leo drilled a hole in there, and I'm guessing he installed a kill switch and put a jumper wire. So if you use positions 2 and 4, all 3 pickups work, but then the kill switch kills the middle pickup, so you just get the bridge and middle. Anyway, that's the Strat you're hearing. Sorry for that extra little story, but that's the story from Del, and I just thought it's pretty cool because those are super rare guitars. can I tell you one more story? Sorry if this is boring, but one night I got a phone call at 3 a.m. a.m. in the morning, and I was thinking somebody died or something, but I answered the phone, and Dell goes, "Hey Bob, how you doing?" And I was thinking, oh wow, it's Del Casher. So we talked probably till, I mean, the sun was coming up when we hung up the phone, but one of the stories he told me, there was a movie that he played in, and it was called Roustabout with Elvis Presley, and he was a musician in the movie, and he was told, along with all the people on the set, do not talk to Elvis because Elvis is a superstar and you guys are basically peasants. So he agreed to that, of course. And during a practice shoot, they played and Elvis was there. And then lunch came along and Elvis came up to Dell and said, "Hey, you're a fantastic player." And Dell was blown away and like, "Oh, thank you." And Elvis wanted to know about his upbringing and how he got into the guitar and stuff. And to make a long story short, Elvis asked Del Casher if he would sit behind him or right next to him in the movie. So, and of course, Del agreed to that and thought it was the coolest thing. So if you ever watch this movie, that's why Del is sitting right behind Elvis Presley. So, back to the story. Let's see, or back to this. I don't know, but this is the pedal I built for Del. The funny thing is, it was a full turnaround. I watched Del in 2013 at the NAMM show, and this pedal right here was owned and used by Del Casher and ended up at the 2019 NAMM show. So if you were at that show and you saw Del in the pedal, this is the pedal that's there. And this is all Del's tape. It's the same tape that's on the original one. That's his real name. He put all that stuff on there. And if you look, it says out on one side and in on the other. And that's because these pedals were just, they were bare on the top on the tread. So they didn't say amplifier or instrument. Let's see what else. I know there's a bunch of stuff I'm forgetting, but, and if you listen here, hear that sound. These pedals, they just had these felts in them. These felts were for the volume pedal, so when you push down, you don't hear any smacking sound. Later on, after it became a wah pedal, they put this rubber stopper in there. This was basically almost like a spring or something. So when you push down the wah, it stops the sound, but it also keeps you from turning the wah off or on. Let's see here. I don't know. He also put this on the bottom plate. If I can grab it. I can't grab it. These damn gloves on. It looks like I forged that name, but I'm assuming his marker dried up, so he rewrote it. But yeah, that's the pedal of this, or the story of this pedal, and my story about Del Casher and the prototype wah and the stories that he told me. Now I'm gonna play those two clips so you can hear what they sound like. And I was gonna have them playing while I was talking, but I'm sure you guys don't want to hear that. So yeah, I hope you enjoy these clips, and thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a little bit of music history. Thanks again, and take care.